Hello, this is Dr. Deb Watry, and this is an introduction to TED 752. Welcome to class. So as you take a look at some of the things that are in the course shell and look at some of the things in the syllabus and explain some things to you, obviously download the syllabus, take a look at it, take a look at the calendar. Do note that introductions, this is a course basically where you will be doing a lot of work on your own and will come together towards the end of the class. But we do want to know who's in our class, so do post an introduction. In this section it does tell you what you should put in there, and it's due already on Tuesday, Wednesday I believe. The other thing that I want to point out, there's a change from 750, is all of the APA resources are in one place versus trying to load them in for every week. So this is your go-to page for your APA resources. Some of the things we've already had, I just want to point out that this has been updated. These two right here have been updated for you. So updated reference list, so you can see a sample of a reference list, citation basics. I don't want to have to individually one-on-one tell you how to change your citations when all that information is provided in here. These are writing hints, writing style. This is from our 750 class, but those of you who are doing tables and charts, this is I think there's 3 different resources on here, how you build tables and charts, which you would use for chapter 4 in particular. So that reference is for you, and some of you still having some challenges with putting in a header and page numbers. So this will be APA resources. When I put that in one of our references, or when I'm talking about APA resources, to go in and make sure that you check. And once you get your reference list checked, you should be okay. Not have to always go back in there and check to see if it's okay. So some things I want to point out about citations. Anything that you put in a citation in your paper has to be listed as a reference. I do check that both of them do line up, and that was a carryover from 750. So make sure that you check out your reference page in APA resources. How do you cite an author, and then how do you list it in the reference? This is something that some of you need to pay attention to. The first time you use a citation, you have to list all of your authors. And that, if you look at that citation resources, there's a chart in there that says up to 6 authors. After you list them, say you have 3 authors and you list all 3 the first time, you use the abbreviation ETAL, and the period goes right here. So that saves you a lot of typing everybody's name all the time. But the first time, you have to type all. References, please check out the example that's in the reference page under APA resources. This is just an example I want to talk about. I'm sorry, in this form I couldn't indent this, but you know that this would have that hanging indent. And notice you only put the initials separated by a comma. Oh, sorry, double comma there. Sorry, that shouldn't be there. Period goes here. Titles of articles do not get capitalized. Titles of the journal get capitalized and italicized. This is the volume number, this is the page number, so you don't have to use the abbreviation, and where it was retrieved from. Now some of you do need to go back in and check that you do not have any UW Super EDU emails links in there, because a person who would be reading your paper may not have access to UW Superior. So what do you do in that instance? You would go and type in Journal of Science and Medicine and get their website, which is this right here. So you can notice how short that becomes, retrieved from, and then the journal website. The DOI update, this was a change. I think some of you had me last semester. I was able to explain that, but some of you coming in from other semesters, this was a change in formatting. If you take a look at the reference page in APA resources, you will see that you have to do some additional writing. We used to just put HTTPS DOI and the number, but this is an addition to putting that in, and then the numbers will always start with a 10. So do go back in and check your DOI references in your page. Our action plan of what's happening. The first week 1, you create an action plan of what you're doing for your research, and it may already be something that you've already done. You're just going to add and say what you've done and what you plan on doing. This is a typing error. It should be week 2. You take your chapters 1, 2, and 3 and you make the corrections and you resubmit it. So the changes must be made if it's reference page, if it's citation, if you need it to add a stronger summary or conclusion, you need to make the changes. So go back in to that class and pull that paper up and make those changes. So you're going to be basically on your own, except for that introduction of yourself. You will come back in week 7 and do a presentation for the rest of the class. So week 2 and 3, you're collecting your data, you're analyzing it, you're writing your chapter 4, and then you tell me in week 3, end of week 3, what have you been doing? You repost your action plan and make the changes. Week 4 is already chapter 4. Everything is open so that you can take a look at what's the requirements and what you need to be doing. Week 5 is chapter 5. Week 6, then you pull it all together, you do your final copy. And I think I've added an extra day or 2 because that gives me an extra day or 2 to read your chapter 5 and get it back to you. And then week 7, you do a PowerPoint. Is presented to me. In week 6, I check it over, but you do a presentation to the class. That's 15 points at the end of the course. So it's going to go very quickly. Make sure that you take a look at the assignment's due date. Assignments not posted on that time is 10% late, and then after the 4th date will no longer be accepted. And where are we? In 750, you did an introduction, a literature review, and talked about your methods, chapters 1, 2, and 3. Chapter 4 is your results, and chapter 5 is your discussion and conclusion. So you do the abstract after. It's a page that you put in your paper, but you don't write that abstract until you have your whole paper completed. So we'll be doing chapter 4, and then chapter 5, then the abstract, which is only, I think the APA requirements is about 200 words for that abstract. So week 1, I'm not going to go over every week. You want to make sure you take a look at the readings. There's things in there that talk about things that you'll need to be doing. So it's what's in the BUI text for you, what you should be taking a look at. Week 1, this is your IRB approval notice, not your application, but the approval notice. You just put it in the folder in that week, and then this is your plan of action. Several places in the course shell now I have sample students, so you can see an action plan because you're going to need to do one. When we get down to chapter 4 and 5, you can see some finished products of students. So that you know what it's going to look like and what yours should look like. So do pay attention when I say sample student. These are resources for you. Here's our textbook. Again, there's some excellent reading in there about analyzing your work, pulling it together for chapters 4 and 5. So I'm not going to go over every week here, but just know it ahead. You do chapter 4 for week 4, chapter 5 for week 5, and then week 6. You remember I said I stretched the due date out for that, is your final thesis. Now this is a PowerPoint presentation. The first time you send it is just for me to take a look at it. Does not have to have audio. But when you present to the class, it will need to have an audio sound behind it. And it doesn't have to be a PowerPoint. It could be a Loom presentation. It could be a YouTube video, whatever you're comfortable with doing. So I'm letting you know ahead of time that you will need to pull this together. And you can already start because you have chapters 1, 2, and 3 started and finished. So you could already start on putting that PowerPoint together and get that far in the PowerPoint. These are 2 checklists we used in TED 750. Again, they're in your class listing, so you can take a look at them. They're from another university, so they might not have all the requirements or they don't follow the template that we'll be following. So keep calm and write my master thesis. As you take a look at some of the student examples, I think I have 3 or 4 student example theses in there. As we change the requirements for APA style, some of the examples in there may not have the correct formatting. So do take a look at what's required for you and do ask questions. Okay, so you are going to make through this because you actually have the biggest part of your paper done, that chapters 1, 2, and 3, and now you're pulling it all together. So here's my contact information. Those of you who have emailed me know that I get back to you as quickly as possible. I check my email at least once a day, but sometimes even more. And if there's a resource I can help you with, I try to get that to you. So this is a class where you're doing a lot of independent work. There's really no discussion except for that presentation in the beginning, talking about yourself, but that presentation at the end. Where you share your thesis and the information you've gathered with your classmates. And that is a requirement for that thesis. So we're just preparing you a little bit ahead of time. So good luck with this class. I know you're going to do well. I've enjoyed working with you thus far, so I'm looking forward to a nice class this term.